There's lots of strange news out there in the world, and we're about to cover it all on the Wait, That's Weird podcast. I'm Jason, your host, and we're going to get into all things strange in just a moment. Also, I just want to mention off the top, this special royalty-free theme song is brought to you by Disco and Strange Day. They are from Berlin, Germany, and can be found on YouTube and SoundCloud. Coming up next, Wait, That's Weird, the podcast, episode 4. Hang on. Alright everybody, welcome to Wait, That's Weird. I'm Jason. Today we're going to talk about all sorts of stories out there in the wacky and weird world of strange and weird news. First of all, we were going to talk about the Yabba Dabba Doo dispute. There was a woman in San Francisco who has finally settled the lawsuit, and that means that her Yabba Dabba Doo Fred Flintstone house does not have to go anywhere. It can stay. So here's what happened. I'm going to read a little bit about this article that's going to start off this episode of Wait, That's Weird. It's from the Huffington Post, and let's see, it's from June the 28th, so just a day ago. If you're listening to this when it comes out, and immediately when it comes out, if you're listening a few days later, then that might not be the case, but let's read ahead. So, there was a San Francisco suburb that was not too pleased about this Fred Flintstone house being in the neighborhood. They thought of it as an eyesore, and I quote, "In a yabba dabba dispute that pitted property rights against government rules that played out in the international media, retired publishing mogul Florence Fang defended her colorful, bulbous-shaped house and its elaborate homage to the Flintstones family, featuring Stone Age sculptures inspired by the 1960s cartoon, along with aliens and other oddities," end quote. So the town felt that the dinosaurs and the sculptures and all of the other stuff were violating local codes, and they called it a highly visible eyesore. And so this went to court, and an attorney for the town was saying that residents are supposed to get a permit before doing this sort of thing, but as everything turned out, the house is going to be able to stay. It's very strange, though, because if you look at the picture here, it's this big, huge, strange purple house, and it does look a little bit like it's from the cartoon. There's a lot of stuff in the front yard that looks like statues of Fred, Barney, Betty, a little Flintstone car that says "No Dino Allowed" to get on the car. It's kind of cute, but I can sort of see how a little town would see that as an eyesore. But I'm sure a lot of the houses in that neighborhood or any neighborhood can be considered an eyesore to another resident. Do you like everybody's house and the way it looks? So to each their own is what I say. This goes on to say that, quote, Hillsborough went to court in 2019 after Fang failed to comply with the multiple stop work orders, as well as an order to remove the features around the multi-million-dollar property. Now, I'm going to end quote there for a second so I can just interject. A multi-million-dollar property. And what does she decide to do? She makes it the Flintstones house. But, like I said, to each their own. Anyways, I'm going to continue to read again. So, quote, the multi-million-dollar property with its 2,730 square foot, 254 square meter home. Fang countersued. The Daily Post in Palo Alto first reported news of the settlement on Thursday, end quote. So there was a settlement recently, and it's funny because obviously the town had a big problem with this, but the house can stay. It has been dismissed, and I just want to look at the end of this a little bit, and basically the town will look into surveying future landscaping improvements. There's going to be probably tighter building permits after this. Fang's going to have to, I guess, apply for building permits, and the town is going to pay Fang $125,000, and she will drop the lawsuit, which was dismissed. So, they managed to settle this, and it has a happy ending for the most part, and the house can stay. The multi-million dollar, it says, Flintstone house will be able to stay. So have a yabba dabba do good old time in San Francisco if you're Miss or Mrs. Fang. And I don't know, I'd like to think that it may be maybe an unwanted tourist attraction, but I think a lot of people would want to come on by and check that out in person, for better or for worse. So I don't know if she wants that kind of attention, but she's certainly getting it with her Flintstone house. And I encourage you to Google San Francisco, California town Flintstone house, and you'll probably come up with this article, and you can see the pictures yourself. It's quite... Wait, that's weird. We go now to an article from themirror.co.uk that talks about a woman who was very upset that a stranger, that she does not have any idea who this person is, damaged her car and then left a very cryptic note and some chocolate bars, according to the article, as an apology. So basically, a chocolate apology for apparently what's a lot of damage to her car. So this article is by Courtney Pochin, and it was released just yesterday as well, on June the 28th. The subheading reads, and I quote, "A driver has gone viral on social media for sharing her frustration over a note that was left on her car in a supermarket car park after a stranger caused a lot of damage to it," end quote. So basically, this woman came back to her car in a car park only to find out that it had been damaged. Nobody likes that, coming back, finding their car damaged, hit, scratched, keyed, bent, broken. We don't like that, obviously. And normally when that kind of thing happens, I guess that protocol, or if you want to call it courtesy, is to switch insurance, not necessarily switch insurance, but trade insurance information and have the insurance companies duke it out and get things paid for. Unfortunately, a lot of people just do that kind of thing and run off. Doesn't necessarily have to be a hit and run per se, but it could be a bump and run, a scratch and run, a key and run. So this woman was from the United States, and she was very frustrated. I guess she had gone into Walmart. Surprise, surprise there. So this is what happened. This unnamed woman, she's not named in the article, she went back to her car and she found a note, and with that note were 2 chocolate bars. They happened to be Hershey's chocolate bars, tucked under the windshield wiper. And there's a viral TikTok video. We can try to play some of that without getting too many technical difficulties. I don't know if there's much of a... it may just be kind of a visual, but we can try it on the fly. She picked up a piece of paper and found a message which read, quote, "Sorry for the damage on your car. Can't afford to fix it, but here's some chocolate instead." End quote. Now, if everything could just be fixed with chocolate, if I could break something or screw up and just apologize with chocolate, what an interesting and strange world it would be. Wait, that's weird. So I guess none of this was caught on camera in terms of the person that did the damage. So basically, the insurance company has told the woman there's nothing that they could do. That's even shared in the article, shared in the video. The insurance company has said there's absolutely nothing that they can do on their part. How convenient, insurance company. You can take, but never give. So this video, since it's been uploaded, has apparently, according to this article, been viewed more than 600,000 times, and it's got over 102,000 likes. And thousands of people apparently have commented and are shocked about all of this damage. Apparently, it's not just a scratch; it's a lot of damage. I wish it said the roughly the amount of damage in dollars that this car sustained from this stranger who just left a couple of chocolate bars and a note. I mean, I guess that's better than nothing, but no, you're technically obligated to stay and provide your insurance, or own up to your mistake. One anonymous commenter said, quote, "That's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound," end quote. It kind of is. I mean, let's just throw out a random number. So let's say there's $4,500 worth of damage to this car. Let's just pretend for a moment. Imagine getting a note saying, "Sorry for the damage to your car, but I can't afford to help you fix it or anything, so I'm going to leave you 2 Hershey's chocolate bars." What if she's diabetic? That would make it even worse. Like, I'm not diabetic, but I don't eat junk food, so that would just, what am I supposed to do with these chocolate bars and a severely damaged car? Thank you very much. So, yes, wait, that's weird. We're going to go to Sky News now, and we're going to talk about a man who died 3,000 years ago. It says, quote, "with 790 injuries is earliest known shark attack victim," end quote. So a man who died 3,000 years ago, he was injured 790 times. So they were trying to figure out what in the world could have caused that. 790 deep serrated injuries. So they came up with some hypotheses, I guess. There's a photo in this of a skeleton found in the dirt. It's entitled "Original Excavation Photograph of Tuscumo number 24." So he's basically being called number 24. How would you like to be called number 24 after you were dug up out of the ground after 3,000 years? I think we'll call you number 24. That doesn't seem very, Anyways, let's read ahead. This is, again, from Sky News, news.sky.com. Quote, "Archaeologists have recreated the brutal death of the earliest known shark attack victim who was killed around 3,000 years ago," end quote. Oh, you gotta really watch out for those shark attacks, especially during Shark Week. Well, this is long before Shark Week was ever a thing. This is 3,000 years ago, and it says, quote, "Oxford-led researchers have been investigating evidence for violent trauma on the skeletal remains of prehistoric hunter-gatherers at Kyoto University," end quote. Well, that sounds like a fun week, a fun weekend. Let's see if there's any violent trauma evidence on this man we dug up that's roughly 3,000 years old. Anyways, there are some people they interviewed in this article, and they go by the names Alyssa White and Professor Rick Schulting have offered that, quote, we were initially flummoxed by what could have caused at least 790 deep serrated injuries to this man. There were so many injuries, and yet he was buried in the community burial ground. The injuries were mainly confined to the arms, legs, and front of the chest and abdomen. Through a process of elimination, we ruled out human conflict and the more commonly reported animal predators or scavengers, end quote. Wow. It also says, quote, "Since archaeological cases of shark reports are extremely rare, they turned to forensic shark attack cases for clues and worked with expert George Burgess of the Florida Program for Shark Research. The team concluded the man known as Number 24 died between 1370 to 1010 BC, end quote." Wow. So they're also saying that the victim was probably alive when the attack began, at least. His left hand was sheared off, it says, and that they're saying he possibly could have tried to defend himself, and that ended up what happened. They go on to say, quote, "Number 24's body had been recovered soon after the attack and buried with his people at the cemetery," end quote. Unbelievable. So, what are we saying? A 3,000-year-old shark attack. Don't trust those sharks. It goes on to speculate, quote, the man may have well been fishing with companions at the time since he was recovered quickly, and based on the character and distribution of the tooth marks, the most likely species responsible was either a tiger or white shark, end quote. Unbelievable. Not only is that, wait, that's weird, unbelievable. And I have so many questions, like where, I mean, we kind of know, but where do they just go dip for 3,000-year-old skeletons? And I'd love to know, so I guess, all there would be left was skeletal matter of, like, the skeleton of this prehistoric hunter-gatherer, and to be able to see all those traumatic injuries just with the skeleton intact and nothing else is amazing. And you have to think how much that person must have suffered if you can see all those puncture wounds right through into the skeleton that remains. Unbelievable. We're going to stay with Sky News because we've got some squids in space, ladies and gentlemen. Wait, that is extremely weird. Squids going off into space, something most of us will never experience. This article says that the Hawaiian cephalopods will help keep astronauts healthy. Exactly how is that going to happen? The subheading says, quote, it is hoped that studying the squid will help scientists see how astronauts could better cope with health issues in space, end quote. I'm wondering why squids, and perhaps we're going to find out. Let's read ahead. Quote, dozens of baby squid have been sent into space so scientists can see how they are affected by their journey, end quote. But why? Why squids? What are we doing with these squids? Quote, the 128 baby Hawaiian bobtail squid were sent into orbit earlier this month on a SpaceX resupply mission to the International Space Station, end quote. Let's just scroll up here. Okay, so this was Wednesday, June the 23rd, 2021 that this was written. So if it's saying a few months ago, is that what it said? Earlier this month. So earlier in June, these squids were sent into space. Squids look a little alien-esque, I must say. I don't know if that has anything to do with why they chose squid as opposed to monkeys or llamas or zebras or even something else that does live in the water. Maybe a beaver? I don't know. Quote, scientists say that understanding how the squid cope with their journey into space could help solve health problems faced by astronauts. Researcher Jamie Forrester said, as astronauts spend more and more time in space, their immune systems become what's called dysregulated. It doesn't function as well. Their immune systems don't recognize bacteria as easily. They sometimes get sick. She added, there are aspects of the immune system that just don't work properly under long duration space flights. If humans want to spend time on the moon or Mars, we have to solve health problems to get them there safely, end quote. Right, but again, do squids and humans share that much in common? Am I missing something? Should they not have put maybe some apes or mice up there in space? And that little suggestion of, if humans want to spend time on the moon or Mars, I don't know, do I? The moon seems a little bit, it doesn't exactly come off as a summer vacation spot to me. It looks a little chilly and dark. And Mars may have a little bit of water, but the last I checked, I don't know, not really on my top 5 destinations that I would like to visit either. In any case, they spoke to a professor, so let's see what the professor has to say. Quote, University of Hawaii Professor Margaret McFall-Ngai, who was one of Foster's teachers in the 1990s, said, we have found that the symbiosis of humans with their microbes is perturbed in microgravity, and Jamie has shown that is true in squid. And because it's a simple system, she can get to the bottom of what's going wrong. The squid are bred at the Kowalo Marine Library, which breeds the species for research projects around the world. End quote. Well, apparently there's a lot of these squids in the Hawaiian waters. They grow only to a length of 7 centimeters, and they live only just 2 or 3 months in the wild. So that's interesting. They don't live for very long, but yet they're getting sent off into space to find out more information about how humans will act in space. Wait, that's weird. Anyways, it says they will be frozen for their return to Earth in July. Are they going to be frozen up in space and brought back down? I really don't fully understand. But it's interesting that it says that they live for just 2 or 3 months in the wild when they are in the Hawaiian waters, and yet all of these squid are being sent into space to see exactly how they react to certain things. So apparently there's some symbiosis of humans with their microbes. Wait, that's weird. Why do we have a symbiosis with squids? I have no idea. I really am a little bit lost at this point. We have a lot more to cover this episode, and we are reaching that point where we usually just do like a 30-minute episode, but this may be I was already planning to make this one a little bit with a little bit more beef, a little bit more substance, a little bit more time tacked on, because we have so much in the world of weird news going on. And we're going to go to CBS News and talk about a pair of triplets. Can you have a pair of triplets? A pair of triplets celebrating simultaneous pregnancies. This is from June 24th, 21. Once again, CBS News. And of course, we've got a lot of, there's definitely a pandemic baby boom, for better or for worse. Babies everywhere. So let's read a little bit about this. I realized that I said we were going to maybe throw in a clip, but due to time constraints and the fact that I'm not sure if that first TikTok video was going to work at all, back in the first article, I just decided not to play it after all. But let's talk about these triplets. This is our story number 4, by the way, for episode number 4. So it says, quote, the Tran triplets were born just 4 minutes apart, and now the Orange County sisters are celebrating another milestone. Gina, Nina, and Victoria will deliver a trio of babies over the next 4 months, 2 boys and a girl. CBS Los Angeles reports. End quote. So Gina goes on to say that she's actually the oldest by 4 minutes, and she's the one having a girl. She says the girl's name is Leighton Grace. I don't understand naming your child before it's born. How do you even know what it's going to look like, act like, be like? Very strange to me. Also, Nina offered, quote, I'm in the middle by 4 minutes, and I'm having a boy, and his name is Hendrix Paul. Hendrix. All right. End quote. Hendrix. Yeah, Hendrix Paul. Also choosing to, all 3 of these women have chosen to name their baby before it's even born, which I find to be, wait, that's weird. And the youngest, Victoria, said, quote, I'm the youngest by 4 minutes, and then 8 minutes and having a boy. His name is Zayden Seth. So we're going to have Leighton, Hendrix, and Zayden, all named before they're even born. And also the article says, quote, together they are part of the COVID pandemic baby boom. Yeah, no kidding. End quote. Yeah, no kidding. End quote again. Victoria's baby is set to come first with a due date in 2.5 weeks. End quote. Oh boy. So it just says once they found out one of them was pregnant, they all encouraged the other one to get pregnant, and now we've got 3 babies coming out from 3 mothers who happen to be triplets over the next, 4 months. over the next 4 months. 3 babies. Babies, babies, babies. By the way, these sisters are all now 35 years old currently. They will give birth in what the article says is in July, August, and November. So that's the 3 sisters who will all have their children at, quote, the Women's Hospital at Memorial Care Saddleback Medical in Laguna Hills, end quote. I don't think the rest of that really matters. I'm not really too keen on who their OBGYN is, but he is named in the article if anybody out there cares. And, you know, they all made their prenatal appointments in the same day. How cute. They're all pregnant. They're all having babies. They're triplets. And wait, that's weird. But there's definitely a COVID pandemic baby boom going on out there, for better or for worse. I don't know. We're going to try to get to 2 more stories, but we are kind of short for time, although nobody's sitting here saying that I've got to do my show in a certain amount of allotted time. I don't have any corporate hacks saying wrap it up or anything. We're going to go to the Ottawa Sun coming up next. A man's throat was slit in what's being called a redneck rave, and it took place in Kentucky. Shocking that it took place in Kentucky and is called the Redneck Rave. No offense, anybody, I'm just not shocked. This article is by Danette Wilford. It was released on June the 24th, about 4 days ago, and we're going to read a little bit into this. So let's go with that. Quote, a 5-day festival in a small Kentucky town that doesn't even have a stoplight should have been a red flag, end quote. Yeah, you know what else should have been a red flag? We're in a pandemic, so why are you having any kind of a rave indoors, outdoors, or otherwise? Thankfully, this one took place outdoors at least, but definitely not following any pandemic protocol. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's read on. Quote, Mammoth Cave, Kentucky hosted Redneck Rave, end quote. Redneck Rave, what a stupid name for an event. Like, that just says it all right there. Quote, an event that featured live music and a demolition derby, end quote. A demolition derby, can you imagine that? A redneck party with a demolition derby. This gets better and better. And let's quote again, among other things. Yeah, I can just imagine what those other things were. And the result was a lot of bad. It literally says in this article, and the result was a lot of bad. There were many who suffered broken bones, dislocated fingers, and lacerations. But some of the more notable injuries included one man whose throat was slit, a woman choked in a fight over a blanket, and a man impaled on a log, end quote. So let's just... broken bones, dislocated fingers, lacerations, slit throats, a fight over a blanket in which a woman got choked. What the heck is going on in this world? Quote, according to Lexington Herald leader, the Edmonson County Sheriff's Office had to contain twice the amount of people they're used to, though that proved difficult considering the lack of manpower, end quote. Right, so you have to contain all these people, and where are you going to contain them where they're not going to give where they're not going to give each other the COVID? These people are absolutely ridiculous. This article actually also shows a photo taken from Instagram, and the Instagram account is the number 6 followed by the word 60 Street Dylan. So it's the number 6, then the word 60 Street Dylan. And this jabroni has this really dirty, I don't know what to call it. It's kind of like a Jeep, but it's just like a muddy terrain vehicle, I guess. And on top of this vehicle is a flag, and it says pro-America, anti-Biden. So that's the kind of folk who you would find at a Kentucky redneck rave. Anyhow, so the sheriff's office, and I quote, the sheriff's office was set set up traffic checkpoints, and it wasn't long before the first arrest was made. End quote. And now we're going to hear from Sheriff Shane Doyle. Okay, he said, quote, "The first vehicle that came through, we found meth, marijuana, and an open alcohol container. And then one of the occupants had 2 active warrants. We were like, well, this doesn't bode well for the weekend." End quote. No, I guess not. Why is this even happening? We are in a pandemic, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, it goes on to say that 48 people were charged, and most of those charges were drug and alcohol related. 48 people charged, 14 arrested, the rest received citations. The charges ranged from assault and strangulation to drug and alcohol possession. What are you doing, Kentucky? It says also, quote, "One man's throat was slit, alleged by a friend who fled the scene and has yet to be found." End quote. Yeah, I'd flee the scene too, although I never would have been there because it's a redneck rave in the middle of a pandemic. None of that sounds appealing. So, absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The next redneck rave, believe it or not, so they're going to let this happen again. I don't know if it's going to be in the same location, but the article literally says at the bottom right here, the next redneck rave is scheduled for October 14th to 17th. And the organizer, quote, "is already looking ahead to the next event and wants everyone to know he's listening to all suggestions on how things can be improved for the next event." End quote. How about this suggestion? Don't have any more redneck raves, and if you really ever do have one again, wait to the end of the pandemic. Stop having these ridiculous raves. And pandemic or not, like, this is some, I'm just gonna say it, like, did they just roll a trailer out and call it a rave and start slitting each other's throats and taking meth and drinking alcohol? What in the world? What in the world, people? What in the world? So we're at the 32-minute mark. We do usually end around the 30 to 32-minute mark, but let's see if we can quickly go over a few more stories, because there was just so much weirdness happening in the world when I sat down to kind of plan out this episode that I was just like, wow, there's too much. And we're going to foxnews.com next, which you shouldn't really trust anything you get from Fox News, but you'll see why I want to use Fox News in just a moment. This article is by Ben Cost by the New York Post anyways, but it's being fed to me through Fox News, and it was published 6 days ago, and the headline says, quote, "Emergency crew rescues sex doll after mistaking it for a drowning woman." End quote. What is going on in the world? Wait, that's weird. So, here we go. Quote, "A team of emergency rescue divers was flummoxed after responding to the scene of a nude drowning woman only to discover it was actually a floating life sex doll. The uproarious guffaw was chronicled on Twitter by YouTuber Natsuki Tanaka," sounds like a Japanese wrestler, no offense, just does, "who had initially believed she was witnessing a real-life rescue in the city of Hashinohe off Japan's northeast coast. Kotaku reported." End quote. And let's see what Tanaka said. Okay, quote, "While filming a fishing video, I thought a dead body floating in the water had washed up, but it was a blow-up doll." Tanaka wrote about the strange scene, which occurred last week. End quote. So, yeah. This Tanaka person, YouTuber Natsuki Tanaka, it says that she has more than 272,000 subscribers on YouTube. Wouldn't that be nice? She basically said someone else had phoned the authorities because of this perceived drowning woman that ended up being nothing more than a blow-up doll. What is the blow-up doll doing in the water? I don't know. But a lot of emergency services were called, and they arrived, and they were ready to rescue what they thought was a drowning woman. Quote, indeed, accompanying photos show multiple fire and rescue brigades, police, and an ambulance working to dredge the dummy from the water in front of a crowd of onlookers. Thankfully, the adult toy was rescued safely, according to Tanaka. End quote. So, everybody's $1 million question about this: how did the blow-up doll end up in the water? Nobody knows the answer to that. Unbelievable. Nobody knows the answer to that. There is a very, I will say, amusing picture of the blow-up doll getting rescued from the water. I really don't understand what the blow-up doll is doing in the water, or why they would be in the water, or why people have blow-up dolls in the first place. But we won't get into that. Some people speculated that somebody was just dumping their oversized trash into the water. Maybe. One Japanese company, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I guess one Japanese company out there, what it's saying is, wait, that's weird. One Japanese company, it says, quote, has devised a more tasteful, eco-friendly way to put one's inflatable paramours out to pasture by throwing them a funeral, complete with candles, undertakers, and even mourning mannequins. End quote. So, are you telling me there's a Japanese company out there where I can take my used blow-up doll and have a funeral for it? And, if that's not weird, I don't know what is. Just really weird. Really weird. Just really weird. How do you even follow that up? We're going to try, we're running a little bit long this week, or this episode rather. We're going to go to the metro.co.uk, and we're going to talk really quickly about a woman who had a heart attack after trying a dangerous TikTok trend. And I'm trying not to laugh, but I mean, why would somebody do this? So this was, it just says by a Metro reporter from June the 3rd. So that's fine. June the 3rd, 2021. We're going to read about this really quickly. Brittany Portillo ended up in the hospital after she attempted the dry scoop challenge she saw on TikTok. It shows a picture of that. So here's what the article says. It says, quote, a new TikTok craze caused a fit and healthy 20-year-old woman to suffer a heart attack. It goes on to say that, quote, the dry scoop challenge is sweeping across the social media platform, but it could be incredibly dangerous if Brittany Portillo's story is anything to go by. In April, the student ingested a mouthful of pre-workout protein powder without diluting it with water for an energy boost. End quote. Well, that's a genius thing to do, isn't it? Sorry, I'm back. Quote, sweating profusely before she'd even started, Brittany decided to press on with her weight session, but things began to get more serious. End quote. Yes, when you're sweating profusely before you even started working out, the smartest thing to do is work out more. Unbelievable. So here's what she said. Quote, I started weightlifting and my chest felt slightly heavy and hurting a bit. I ignored it because I assumed it was an anxiety or panic attack and continued with my workout. End quote. So if you're having an anxiety or panic attack, also a great idea to continue with your workout, Brittany. Quote, I went home and felt nauseous and I had a headache. I took a shower but still felt nauseous with a headache and couldn't eat dinner. I still decided to go to work, but at work the symptoms of heavy chest and chest pain came back, but more intense. Yeah. In the locker room, I was sweating profusely again, and my head was hurting. The pain went to my back and my left arm. That's when I knew it wasn't anxiety and maybe a heart attack. End quote. Brittany. CT scans, quote, CT scans revealed she had suffered a small heart attack and was told by doctors she had a sensitivity to caffeine she'd previously been unaware of. End quote. So this video that I'm not going to even watch has been viewed more than 2.3 million times, and it has 335,000 likes. She warned her followers, quote, "I would advise everyone to know their caffeine tolerance and to just mix it with water. Don't do dry scooping just because it's trending online." End quote. Thank you so much for that advice, Brittany. I don't think I would ever take any other advice from you about anything, but I think everybody should take your advice when it comes to this ridiculous trend on TikTok. Probably the dumbest thing I've heard about since eating Tide Pods. Don't do that either, ladies and gentlemen. Please, please don't work out after taking non-diluted protein powder. Don't eat Tide Pods. And just use some common sense. Don't have redneck raves during a pandemic. A lot of this just has to do with common sense or lack thereof. Alright, so we're going to be wrapping things up. We're approaching the 41-minute mark right now, so it's going to be a little bit of a longer episode, and I hope everybody's enjoyed this edition of Wait, That's Weird, Episode 2. And once again, past episodes can be found in our archives. We're going to go to oddee.com, od.com, for this final article that we're going to talk about. Naked sunbathers have been fined once again for COVID violations. But they weren't just fined for COVID violations and being naked sunbathers. They were rescued by cops from a deer. This is from June the 28th, and the article is by Isle Copila. And once again, oddee.com for this one. Let's read ahead. So, quote, "Nobody likes being caught naked in public," end quote. That's actually not true. But I don't like being caught naked in public. I think a few people do. Quote, "That's just embarrassing, but it sure does add to the shame when you get fined hundreds of dollars for violating public health rules. Two nude sunbathers in Sydney received a ticket for $750 each after the Australian police caught them violating COVID-related stay-at-home orders. And it's all because they got scared of a deer," end quote. So, you know, there's a pandemic, and these lovely people decided that they would get naked and go sit under the sun. All right, I just wanted to make that clear to everybody before I read ahead about how some people are stupid. Quote, "The men aged 30 and 49 decided to go air out their family jewels on June 27th. Despite Sydney's strict rules about not leaving the city's metropolitan area, they snuck out and headed for a beach on Australia's south coast. It was all fun and games," end quote, for a second. No, it wasn't all fun and games. They're being absolute idiots in a pandemic. That's not all fun and games. Anyways. "It was all fun and games," quote, "until a mischievous critter intruded on the beach. After being picked up by the cops, the men told them that a deer suddenly appeared out of the woods. The story doesn't say whether the deer was being aggressive or whatever else might have happened. All we know is that the nudist duo escaped the animal into the woods of the Royal National Park without their clothes. So they ran," end quote. So they ran away from the deer without their clothes on. So let's go on to see what's happened here. They're running through the woods, and they have no clothes on. They became hopelessly lost, as the article says, quote, "hopelessly lost," end quote. "They kept wandering around, but they had no option to call for help. I guess they had a phone? Was there a phone in one of the trees? Were they naked, but they had a cell phone? We may never know. I'll try to get to the bottom of this." Quote, "According to New South Wales Police, the authorities received a call," okay, there we go, "for assistance from the men at around 6 p.m. that night. The cops went to their rescue, both by car and a helicopter." My goodness, end quote. A helicopter had to be brought in for all this nonsense. Quote, "They found the 30-year-old man walking alone along a track in the national park. The police say that he was still naked at the time. A while later, the helicopter located the 49-year-old, likewise only partially clothed, elsewhere in the woods. Clearly the two had gotten separated in the forest." The relief at being rescued probably didn't last all too long. Both were soon handed $750 fines for unlawfully leaving the greater Sydney area. End quote. Good! So, they knew. The article even says they knew perfectly well they were breaking the law. And, this is not the end of the pandemic. Even this lovely article right here is reminding people there is a new Delta strain. Not everyone is vaccinated anyhow. And we've got to be diligent. I don't want to get too serious on a weird news podcast, but we've got to be diligent. Stay diligent or your ass will get fined. If you want to sunbathe naked, maybe do it in your own backyard, away from everybody else. And, this article has a little bit more. It's got a final heading that says legislating against idiots. It literally says that. So we can talk a little bit about that. It's saying here that the two men could have argued that they were out exercising, but the police were not going to have any of that, especially since they were naked and they were obviously sunbathing. It says that 46 other fines were handed out that day. Some were for not wearing a mask. Others were more serious. And that's serious enough, is it not? Yeah, so, a lot of people being issued tickets for being out of the area that they're supposed to be in. And the NSW Police Commissioner Mick Fuller was... He bluntly said, quote, "It's difficult to legislate against idiots," end quote. Let's read a little bit more about what he said. Mick Fuller. So here's the police commissioner. Quote, "Clearly putting people at risk by leaving home without a proper reason, and I think then on top of that, getting lost in a national park and diverting important resources away from the health operation, I think they should be embarrassed." Fuller, end quote. Fuller commented on the naked sunbathers, end quote. So, yes. The moral of the story, stop being an idiot. Use your common sense, please, people. And that is your weight. That's Weird Podcast, episode 4. A action-packed, extra long podcast just for you. And I'll see you next time. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And you can also hit that notification bell if you want to be amongst the very first to find out when the next episode of Wait That Weirds drops. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.